We're continuing to talk about similar triangles, and we want to look at overlapping triangles, triangles that are not just side by side, but they're kind of together, like these. There's also some triangles that will be inside of each other like these, so we're going to look at lots of different triangles like this. We're still going to use our rules about proportions, but what we have to do is we have to figure out what sides correspond together. And what I normally do is I look at the sides and figure out which sides are the biggest. So when I look at these two sides, 54 and 72, I know that 72 is the biggest. So then I need to look here and decide, well, which one's the biggest. You can't look at the numbers because we don't know what x is. You actually have to look at the length of the lines. So look at this length and look at this length. This one looks longer, so this one must correspond together. So what that means is that these other two must correspond together. So 54 and 12 must correspond together. After you figure out what corresponds, then you just make a proportion and solve. So remember, if you start here on one side, you got to start here on the other side, however you want to do it. But I'm going to start here, 54 over 12. That means I start 72 over x plus 6. After you have it set up, you solve it exactly the way that we have been using your cross multiplication. So if I cross multiply here, I get 54x plus, I'm going to do 54 times 6, and I get 324. And then cross multiply here, 12 times 72, then I get 864. Subtract 324 on both sides. Divide by 54, so x is 10. Okay, next problem. Alright, so 169 and 156, start with the two triangles that have the numbers that you can look at. I know this one's bigger, so then I come over here and I look at it and I say, okay, is this one or this one bigger? And sometimes it's hard to tell. Sometimes you just kind of have to do the best that you can to figure it out. And I think I'm going to turn it sideways to tell. Because now when I turn it sideways, it looks like this one over here is bigger. So what I want you to realize, especially looking at number 1 and number 2, sometimes it's these two that are the same, sometimes it's the cross ones that are the same. And there's no way to really know without some information like I just showed you. So I know that 169 goes with what we're looking for, which is x. And then because I started with this triangle, I need to start with the 156. And it must go with the 60. Okay, cross multiply. So I know 156 goes with x. Do the other side, 169 times 60. All right, we're going to divide by 156. And we get x is 65. We're going to do several more just like that, so we can get in the habit of telling which ones go together. So 7 and 13, I can tell 13 is the biggest. Looking here, this one and then this one, obviously this one's longer, so sometimes it's easy to tell, sometimes it's not easy to tell. It was pretty easy on that one because I can look at the two lines and tell that this one's longer. So I know that 13 goes with x, which is what we're looking for. Since I started here, I must start here. So 7 goes with 21. Cross multiply, 7x equals whatever we get here. Divide both sides by 7. And we get 39. Okay, number 4. We got these two sides here. This one is definitely the longest of these two. So looking over here, again, if you need to like look at it sideways a little bit or whatever makes sense to you to help you figure out which one's longer. Looks like of these two sides, looks like the 63 is longer. So we'll have 27 over 63 equals these two over each other. Cross multiply. I'm going to do this one first since it has the x. 21 times 27 And then 21 times 63. We'll subtract 567 on both sides. And then divide by 54. Now I will tell you that even though we're not getting any decimals here, that does not mean you cannot have decimals. You can have decimals. I just wanted to point that out because you might not recognize that it is okay to have decimals on some of these problems. So let's look at the last two of this kind. Look at this triangle. We've got a 36 and a 40. I know that 40 is the longest. So looking at these two here, I think I'm going to turn it sideways to tell. Make that straight. Looks like this one over here is longer. They look almost the same size, but so do those, so it's so hard to tell. So it looks like it's that way. So 40 over this equals 36 over 27. Cross multiply. Negative 9 times 36 is negative 324. 3 times 36 is 108. Okay, and then I'm going to do 40 times 24. And I'm going to add 324 on both sides. And then I'm going to divide by 108. And this is one of those that we get decimals, so that's good to know. I'm just going to round it to 2 decimal places. Okay. Let's do the very last one. We have 24 and 26, so 26 is the longest. Alright, looking here, these two are the ones we're looking at. Looks as if this one's longest. Again, just a reminder, when you're looking at it, sometimes it's crossways and sometimes it's the same one on the other side. Alright, so we've got 26 over 5x minus 6 equals 24 over 36. Cross multiply. 5 times 24. 6 times 24. And then 26 times 36. Add 144 on both sides. So we get 120x equals 1080. Divide by 120. So x is 9. Okay. One more kind of problem I want to look at, and that's these problems that have 2 triangles in them. So what you have to do when you're looking at the ones with 2 triangles like this is you have to look at the little triangle, which I'm going to highlight, and then you have to look at the big triangle to compare. And I'm going to highlight it as well. I'm going to highlight it outside so you can see it both. Okay, and after you've highlighted that, if you want to, you're able to compare the sides that need to be compared. So like this side will compare to this side. This part of the blue side will compare to this part of the pink side. This part of the blue side will compare to this part of this side. So when you're looking at these, you just have to figure out which sides go together. Alright, I'm looking for this here, which really means that I'm looking for the part of the blue. Okay? So because of that, the one that the blue compares to is the large pink one, so I know that I'm going to need that side and this side because they go together. And then pick 2 other sides that you have the information for. I think that 42 is supposed to be this side right here. It's hard to tell. So I'm going to use this 99 and the 54. So as long as you have 2 sides given that you can compare, and then for what you're looking for, then you can write your thing up. 54 is just this little blue part right here. I know that's hard to tell too. So we're going to do x over 121 and then 54 over 99. Okay, we'll cross multiply just like we have been. X times 99 is just 99x. 121 times 54 is 6534. We want to divide by 99, and we get 66. Okay, on the next one. Alright, let's see what we're looking for. We're looking for this side here, which is the whole side of the big triangle. So the side it compares to is the little side of the little triangle, same place. So I know that those two are the two I'm looking for. Now I need to pick two sides that I have. You can pick these two sides or these two, it doesn't matter. I'm going to pick these two just because the numbers are smaller. But just as long as you pick two sides of the triangle that you have, you're good. So if I start with x and go to 9, then that is fine. Now x is the long side, so that means I need to start with the long side here. So that means I'm going to have to start with 44. You could have done 9 over x and then do 11 over 4 if you wanted to. Alright, I get 11x. I'm going to multiply 9 and 44 together. And I'm going to divide by 11. Okay, let's do a couple more. Alright, so here's where my x is. That's the little side of this triangle. That means I need to look at that side of that triangle because that's the long side. I need to pick two other sides. These two or those two, it doesn't matter. I'll pick these two. Like I said, it really doesn't matter. So if I start with 4x plus 8 and go to 154, then that's good. 4x plus 8 was of the short side, so I need to go to the short side here. Okay, cross multiply. So 88 times each of those two things. Okay, and then I'm going to subtract 704. And then divide by 352. Then I get 5. Every other problem is really the same thing. I will just show you real quick how to set them up in case that you're curious, but I think that you can solve these. So notice this is the big side of the whole one, so that means that goes together there. So that means we'll just use these two. Okay, so we have x over 32. X was the big side, so I know I need to start with the big side. This one's really easy to solve. You can do it by cross multiplying or just realize those two are the same size, so those two must be the same as well. Very quickly, let's just set them up. We've got a big one and a little one, big one and little one. So x over 35 equals 88 over 40, and then you could solve. On this one, x is the big side here, so there's the little one. That means we're going to use these two, so we have x over 8 equals, I started with the big, so I got to start with the big. And then there's how you set it up.